Hey guys, I'm Ben Bellac, and this is Zach Goldsmith. On this week's episode to Live and Buy in Los Angeles, we have one of my very favorite colleagues at the agency. We've been here together since there were only 60 agents. Now there are 90 offices. He sells listings big and not so big. Most recently won around $10 million to a lottery winner.
No, that was 25.5.
That was 25.5.
Do your research.
And another north of $20 million that had a dinosaur fossil as part of the staging.
Yeah.
And while he's hyper aware, hyper empathic, and an overall great human, what you might not know is he's participated in over 200 ayahuasca ceremonies. With the
Is this going to be relevant?
With the decriminalization of magic mushrooms in the state of California and the weekly intake of shroom chocolate by co-host Zach Goldsmith,
What's up, dudes?
we thought it was an appropriate time to have the agency's local natural medicine expert talk us through his opinion on microdosing, the benefits he's experienced from the use of the aforementioned, and to answer some of our questions, which we know you share. Stefan Pampuy, welcome to the show.
Well done pronouncing that. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I had someone once say, I know someone at the agency, I think you know. And I said, who is it? And they said, Stefan Pampuy? Is it Pampuy?
Pampuy.
Pampuy. That's what I'm calling you now. What's up, Pampuy?
Pampuy. I used to get pumpkin pie, Pampuy, pump me, all that stuff.
Can we talk about who you are and why you bring this kind of medicine into your game?
Wait, first question is, are you on anything now?
I am not. I actually wanted to come here to not have a filter of, of anything. So speaking with a clear mind, which actually, ironically, would probably be better if I did. But no, I wanted to respect the podcast.
Yeah, I am.
We don't.
I gave you something you didn't know about. That's why you're so fluffy.
Rufita's coffee.
So I know that psilocybin can lead to enhanced emotional insight and empathy, right? Like I'm not going to do it. A lot of people I know, like our world, is doing a lot of microdosing of a drug that was once kind of used in the 70s for hallucinating and still is in ways. But now, for the first time ever, it's being used for the benefits of daily life. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's definitely become a lot more prevalent in the past few years. The whole tech vibe with microdosing LSD, mushrooms. Some people do microdose ayahuasca, but if they do, they're only microdosing the ayahuasca plant, because ayahuasca is two plants, the tricrina leaf and the ayahuasca vine. But you wouldn't normally microdose that. So there are different ways or different plants or substances you can microdose, but more and more we've been seeing with the decriminalization, we've been seeing mushroom really come to the forefront.
So I think around like 6 years ago, we were talking, as realtors do, and I saw you like open up a mini like Altoids tin.
Little tin can, yeah.
Yeah, and you like took a bite of something, and I'm just like, that's not a mint. Is this guy like eating potpourri? I asked what it was, and you said that you were microdosing shrooms. So I know it's like kind of tiptoeing its way out of the Hollywood Hills and Malibu and into the mainstream. What turned you onto it, and like what were you trying to achieve exactly?
By the way, I think it's tsunamiing its way through
Malibu
and Hollywood Hills. I don't know about tiptoeing.
In the last few years. Well, I mean, ironically, for me, microdosing was kind of on the tail end of my journey with plant medicine, because I started on that path about 15 years ago, and what I was trying to achieve is being able to kind of maintain that state or that state of connection or that state of insight or that state of clarity and flow that I would get through my plant medicine journeys. And, I'd heard, years ago, I'd heard that microdosing was a way of doing that. And, what people don't realize is that microdosing should be sub-perceptual. You shouldn't feel anything. People think like, how are you working on shrooms? How do you feel? Like,
interesting.
You shouldn't be feeling it until you find your dosing. Obviously, I always advise people to experiment on the weekends or on days where they don't really need to get anything important done. Mm-hmm. Have some tasks so you know how to manage certain things you're trying to do. but it should be sub-perceptual. It should be almost like if you've done, mushrooms on a full dose, the tail end of that, with chocolates, on the tail end of that, when you're kind of coming out of your experience and you just feel good, someone offers you a beer or a joint or something, you're like, no, I'm good. You're just present. You're in a state of just bliss and connectedness and just
enhanced
your
emotional insight,
all that stuff, right? So you should be able to ideally you want to get there without the effects of feeling a little bit shroomy or trailing or tripping or things like that. So there's a bit of a learning curve, but that's the ideal state, or that's the ideal intention of microdosing, is to really just feel dialed in, engaged.
Yeah.
Do you think that helps you to maintain focus?
Not only does it help me to maintain focus, it kind of shuts off the monkey mind, as a lot of coaches talk about. That call that you have to make to the client of like, oh shit, we got to have this conversation, or I got to do this or do that. It just kind of, when you dial it in right, when you learn your way around it, you just look at the tasks that you have to do. I'm like, okay, what do I have to do now? Make that call, boom, done that. Have this conversation, boom. This uncomfortable interaction, boom, 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 boom. And you're just hammering off these things on your to-do list without the emotional baggage of like everything that comes where your mind's overthinking, like, oh, how am I gonna, that sluggish apprehension and getting these things done. For me, it really helped with having those just honest, direct conversations.
Yeah, it seems like given like the epidemic with opioids and the abuse of drugs like Adderall and Ritalin, and they start kids as young as 4 and 5 years old on, this accomplishes a very similar goal, which is like full engagement in a more homeopathic way.
That's the irony, right? Is like all these drugs that are, safe prescription drugs or whatever, legal, they're just so toxic, right? And there are cases where that is a bit more the appropriate, medicine. I believe the number's a lot less. If you look at the research, there's a lot less people that should be on that would be able to utilize mushrooms as an alternative. But the irony is that mushrooms is a plant, right? It's like it grows, you pluck it, you can eat it all slimy and wet, but ideally you want to dry it.
Watch your mouth. Watch your mouth on this show.
But it's literally there's no interaction, there's no alterations. It's just you pluck it and you eat it, which is how could something from nature be illegal? It's just a weird concept. So those days where you wake up and you're just like in a good place, you closed a big deal, you came out, you're dating a new girl, you're whatever, you're just in a good mood.
Nice work, kid.
So it's like that, but every day or every time you're
No, I feel you. But what I was going to ask you is right before that, you said that it wasn't as deep as some of the other plant-driven journeys that you've gone on. What can you share about that and taking a larger dose?
Oh yeah, if you were to do so for the average person, or let's say the standard amount, right? A microdose should be 0.2, 0.3 grams, 0.1 for some, 0.5 for someone like me, or even maybe a bit more to be considered a microdose. A social dose.
By the way, that's like half of a chocolate square, maybe a little less.
Depending.
Just so people that are watching.
And for me, when you saw me with my little tin can, I like the actual mushroom. I actually like to eat it. In its
caps
pure
and
form.
Stems?
Not even just stems, just like raw, just
I remember
bite off the
eating
stems.
stems.
Yeah, because then I know it, I feel it. Mushrooms, it's just like edibles, right? It's like smoking a joint versus an edible. You just never really know how each thing is mixed, and maybe there's a little bit more in this piece of chocolate, whatever. So I like just the raw, just pure to the source. So that's the way I consume it. But so then a social dose would be, let's say 1.5, kind of a party dose, 2. And then a full dose is 3 to 5, and then a ceremonial dose.
3 to 5. That's an eighth.
That's an eighth, yeah. And then a ceremonial dose for me, it's 5 to 7, right?
What is it?
5 to 7 grams.
Is what?
Like a ceremonial dose. If I'm
we're
going
to talk about that.
Yeah.
So you've got a big sliding scale.
There's a sliding scale,
which kind of like debunks the kind of misnomer about the abuse of this hallucinogenic, and people think again it's like, oh man, we're getting toasted tonight, dude. And it doesn't, like there can be journeys like that, but you have a varying scale. And I love at the tip of it, the real difference in micro and macro is to micro dose, to micro use it. What happened?
A macro dose? No, that it doesn't work that way.
Okay,
it's not there's a
words.
micro dose. There's no macro dosing.
Yes, there is. There's absolutely a difference in micro and macro.
Okay.
Stefan's going to get
one's
into that.
bigger, one's
No,
smaller.
there's micro and hyper.
Well, I would say this because there is still abuse over anything, right? Like anything beneficial. It's like
Wait, speaking of which, so what would you consider a reasonable amount of microdose, let's say in a day or in a week? Like you taking any days off?
it depends. Like the standard protocol is 1 day on, 2 days off. I was doing it every day just because you feel it out, and I actually haven't done it in a while because I kind of forgot about it. Right? Like there's times
That's how
where
sub-perceptual it is.
there's just like there was days where I'm like I needed to feel connected. I needed to feel focused. I needed something to kind of like help dial me in. And then when the good days were coming and I was kind of on point and life was just
You rode the
in
wave
flow,
and didn't
and then
need
I forgot that I just didn't feel the need to take it, so I didn't take it.
Right,
And it's
right,
been a while
right.
actually since I haven't taken it.
So
With
you're
the
using
economy.
it as a boost aid.
I'm using it as a tool
Yeah.
to bring out the best version of myself.
Yeah,
in
I
any
love
given
that.
situation.
I love that. And that's what I was talking about micro versus macro.
Correct.
If you just go in like a journey being more the macro end of it.
Correct.
Hyper, Ben, if you want to use the fucking word hyper. They get it. The idea is microdosing is using it for one of its great purposes.
Correct.
And you're not abusing opioids doing it.
Yeah,
I
and-
love that theory. But can I go ahead
No,
because I'm
please.
another. Well, can you use that every day? I like the idea that you're riding waves and you don't need it every day, but doesn't it lose?
It does lose its potency if that's
Yeah.
where you're getting at, especially if you're doing a bunch, right? And so the example I always give is because what happens with mushrooms, you're not really getting high on the psilocybin necessarily. It's your body's reaction to fighting that that propels you to kind of have that high. And so the example I use is, if you take, let's say, 3 grams, a bunch of mushrooms, 1 day after not having done it for a while, the psilocybin attacks. It kind of comes in, and all your immune system or whatever is asleep at the wheel, and so they come in and they kind of just just charge you, and then you kind of wake up, and that's why you tend to get that a little bit of nausea for some people on bigger doses, and then you have that after effect where it really kind of expands. If you did the same amount the next day, there's still guards on alert, right? And so of that 3 grams, maybe 2 grams or 1/7 of those grams are getting in. And then on the next day, they're all still out because they're like, these guys just keep coming. And so you can do 5 grams the second or third day, and you'll have less of an effect as doing, 2-3 grams the first day. And so
I'm a lightweight. There's no guards
there's no
at any time.
the guards are always sleeping.
No, but you build up a tolerance over time.
You build up, but then
every
that
day.
tolerance resets.
Yes.
Right. So let's say you did 3 grams, and then a week later or 2 weeks later, 3 grams. You should have relatively the same effect.
Right. So someone could get on a weekly plan, basically.
Yeah.
And
You could. Yeah.
Chloe's loved the
Like
weekly
this
plan.
guy's coming up.
I told you I'd be watching him during this episode.
Yeah.
Hates the idea of this stuff. But
Yeah.
I think this is a wonder drug, and I feel the same about marijuana, psilocybin. I think they both can be used in your daily life to activate who's really underneath the weird blazer cardigan thing.
Yeah.
What I'll say is that one of the things that I've really appreciated with you over the years is some of the times when I've wanted to experiment with something new, you really watched over me, and I think it just goes to show you've become a mentor / big brother of sorts in that area. And honestly, I used to smoke weed when I was in high school, every single day at school. And then one day I got caught and got in a little bit of trouble, and they called the police. So what happened was I had a bit of trauma.
Bad association.
Yeah, I had a bit of a trauma assignment to getting high. And then for the guy who I was the first guy to, not that it's the same, but I was the first guy to take LSD before I could drive with my friends. I did it alone at a Grateful Dead concert. I was.
That is an
just-
appropriate place, actually.
I just went, I was going for it and smoking, and then all of a sudden, my experience of it changed. And I think that sadly, whenever I'm trying anything, there's that kind of rears its head.
Yeah, I mean,
and
that's-
you've helped me in time, just checking on me and stuff
Of course.
like that.
I mean, to me, that's very important.
I look how
because
you're offering his mentoring services, his drug mentoring
No, I'm just saying
services
it
to the
was
public. Where
great.
can they find
No,
you?
but it is. Look, it's a passion of mine in the sense that I believe that a lot of these things. I didn't do anything until I was 30, right? So, and the first thing I did was ayahuasca, actually.
That's what I want to talk about next.
So for me, I think it's
Wow.
really important to learn it, right? You say the mushrooms is a great drug. Not to sound cliche, Topanga hippie in LA, it's not a drug. it's medicine, man. But it is, right? Because for me, a drug
It's
is
a natural psychedelic.
Exactly. It's a drug to me is something that's synthesized, or like Coke or even LSD, right? Things like that, or prescription meds. These are plants, right? It's medicinal plants. And so for me, it's very important to learn it, right? You learn it as a tool. Like for me, my intention around it is always first to learn what it is in an appropriate setting under proper guidance with the good intentions. And then once you understand it, then you can kind of bring it into the party setting, right? Like, so a lot of people, when I talk to them, mushrooms is not for me. Oh, have you tried it? Yeah, I tried it. I was, in high school, I was drunk at 3 a.m. And like, you didn't try mushrooms. You just did a whole bunch of shit and you have a bad experience. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's not the mushrooms that gave you that experience. It's just,
the environment.
He's again becoming a guidance counselor. But you'd be the coolest guidance counselor in high school you've ever had. Yeah. It's like, go to him if he's doing drugs. You're not doing them the right way.
Exactly. But that's important. Right? Because then you understand it in its own regard. So people sometimes will do it at a party when they're on something, LSD, they're on Molly, they're on K, they're on this, and then you don't know what ends here and what starts here. You have no idea what it actually is. Yeah. And so for me, learn it properly. Just do that, understand it a few times on your own with a group that's safe and where you feel like you can kind of dive in, and then scale it back to be like, okay, well, now that I know that, a ceremonial dose at 5 grams, whoa, it's intense. Cool. I learn a lot about myself. Okay, what happens with a 3 grams? What happens with this? What happens with maybe a social dose where you do, 2 grams, you go hiking with a bunch of trusted friends. Okay, cool. What happens when you take a gram and go to a Coldplay concert? Okay, cool. And so you're able to kind of understand it and understand what goes where, right? So a microdose may be something for a big meeting or something that you're, not the first time. Obviously, understand it, learn it, use the tools. A bit like your coaching, like Tom Ferry stuff, right? You gotta rehearse. You're not gonna do your cold calls or whatever on your first time. Your cold call. You're role playing. You're understanding.
Yeah, you practice.
How to fully practice.
Will you email me this sliding scale, because I'm going to use every inch of it. What I am excited about, what Ben is really excited about, is the bigger journey, and that's something I want to do next time I go to South America.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah,
you don't have to go that far. Let's talk about ayahuasca. First of all, what is
the proper setting, isn't it? From
that's fly somewhere.
Yeah,
you can get it here.
It's from Brazil. It's from the Amazon. I think the plant's from the Amazon.
It
anyway.
is.
Do it properly.
Yeah, he has it at his house.
I highly recommend.
Do it on Melrose and San Vicente instead.
I recommend doing.
Mine was more exciting. Sorry.
In Peru, if you have the means and the time to do that.
So
do it via Zoom.
What is it?
Ayahuasca is a plant. I mean, it's a tea made of 2 plants. You have the ayahuasca vine and the tricuna leaf. Mm-hmm. So people, ayahuasca is the name that we call it. Ironically, the dimethyltryptamine, which is the active component that gives you the psychedelic experience, is in the tricuna leaf, not in the ayahuasca vine. Mm-hmm. The ayahuasca vine serves as an MAO inhibitor, a monoamine oxidase, which is an enzyme in your digestive system that digests the dimethyltryptamine, mm-hmm. DMT for short.
That's in Turkey.
He's acting like he's following, by the way.
Yeah. So we're gonna chat
DMT
dimethyltryptamine is DMT, right? Just the same when people smoke DMT, dimethyltryptamine is the word, but so DMT for short. And so DMT is prevalent in a lot of things, but we digest it, and so it kind of goes through our system, not ever really having that psychedelic effect. What the shamans in the Amazon discovered 3,000 years ago is if you combine these 2 plants with the right proportions, you have that effect, because the MAO inhibitor allows the DMT to bypass the digestive system, flood your bloodstream, and then goes into your pineal gland. So the pineal gland, the third eye, it's the portal to the spirit world. So when people have near-death experiences, your body secretes DMT and it floods the pineal gland.
That self-activates at that point.
Exactly. So when people have that, so it's kind of like exploring the death realm or the near-death experience without, the inconvenience of dying. And so you're able to kind of pop through that portal and visit different, dimensions, whether it's the future, the past, releasing traumas, whether it's alternate universes or whatever your experience tends to be. But that's kind of how it's activated through the pineal gland.
How long does it last?
It depends. I mean, ceremonies are usually anywhere anywhere from 3 to 6. Well, not usually 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. I've done one in Thailand in the jungles from sunset to sunrise, which was like 12 hours. And that was pretty amazing, interesting. Raw in the jungle, like I was, I don't know, 6, 7 cups in, talking to Patrick Swayze in a tree, had great insights. Just
Roadhouse.
Yeah, basically. I had
Are you ever scared during that journey, or you want to be probably
I
too?
know what
You
he's
want to
going to say.
experience-
I can't wait for. I've heard this answer before, and it makes me aroused.
I mean, for me, like my curiosity or my sense of adventure around that is more intense than most. Like I've gone to the point where like I don't really care if I don't come back from it, to be honest. Like because look, if I had kids,
You knew he was going to say that?
no, let him finish.
if I had kids and all that stuff, it'd be different. But I'm willing to go wherever it takes me, to be honest.
Holy
and so
fuck. That part arouses you? Because me too. if
Let
that
him
did.
finish.
Okay.
You'll hear my boner will rise.
So for me, there's not much fear around that. There was one ceremony in the hunters that I've done where I thought I wasn't gonna come back. I mean, I wasn't gonna die, but I wasn't gonna come back the same. I'd be like that, guy walking the streets of Santa Monica, proclaim whatever. Just my brain was just fried. And a lot of great insights came around that, but that was a time. And look, it's like anything else. It's like a relationship, right? The first one, of course, you're a little trepidatious, you're a little bit hesitant, you're whatever. The second, third, fourth, you start to go deep, far down, and you come back. And every time you come back, and you see the insights, even the challenging journeys, you learn a lot about yourself, but you also develop trust. And the more trust you have, the less scary it is, right? Until every once in a while you get sideswiped by a tsunami. But there's insight in that as well. So
there's insight in that as well, which is pretty much what I was looking for, because we talked about this before, where like some people, they start to like kind of lose their mind a bit, or like start to freak out or wig out, as they say, whereas he's like, some of his ceremonies and experiences, he's meant to go through it, which leads us to what they call the hero dose.
Basically, the hero dose tends to be a bit more associated with mushrooms, but the hero's journey could be something around ayahuasca as well. But very much like what you were saying, there's for me, if you enter, like, nobody's doing this for fun necessarily. Sometimes it's fun and it's great, but you're not doing it for that.
Yeah,
right?
people
You got
turn
to
to it because they're going through something. They're
going through
like, I want more
something.
truth.
They need insight. They need something that no one else in this world's providing. You've been to all the shrinks, you read all the books, you did all that stuff, and you're still not coming up with the answers you're looking for. And so you tend to go to it in that state. And you got a diet, right? There's no alcohol, no sex, no sugars, no coffee, no stimulus of any kind.
No sugar.
None of that
Adler
stuff.
can't do it. Yeah. No Adler.
No Adler. So none of that stuff. So you're going into it prepared. It's not like you're doing it after, a night out and you're home.
You're depleted.
DMT people do when they smoke, which is why, that's a separate subject we can circle back to. But with ayahuasca, it's something you're preparing for. It is kind of like a hero's journey in the sense that you're going to battle, and sometimes the battle is easy and, victory comes quick. And sometimes you're beaten to hell, right? But there's always golden nuggets that you find. There's always something on the other side. And sometimes sometimes you go nowhere. My first 3 journeys, I went nowhere.
Is that right?
And many journeys since then. And, and sometimes the best place to go is nowhere. You're just kind of left to sit in your like desperation of answers and figure it out.
You mean like you come out of it and you feel like I got nothing out of it?
Yeah, or you just don't, it doesn't hit you or it doesn't, take you anywhere.
You
didn't go on the journey.
And then other times, you get fired, you go on the journey, you come back and you restart Apple.
Basically, yeah, like or at least fonts, like you did on his acid trip. But the interesting thing is
LSD, right? He was on, yeah.
The interesting thing is, unlike any other quote unquote drug or substance, I've done journeys where on the same bottle, the same medicine, from one night to the next. One night I'm drinking 3, 4, 5 cups, not really connecting, going anywhere. The next night, half a cup, and I'm gone, or vice versa. Sometimes people say, well, it's because it's the 5 cups from the night before. No, sometimes the first night it blasts me off, and sometimes the second one doesn't. So there is an element of the co-creative experience that you get with this. Whereas with like bottle of vodka, give or take what you ate, you drink a bottle.
Yeah, the more you drink,
you're
the
going to be
more
the same.
drunk you are.
You're never going to have a full bottle of vodka and not go in and not get drunk, right? Or have one sip and be plastered.
Sure.
So there is something in that, what they call the spirit, the spirit molecule, right? DMT is considered the spirit molecule. There is something within that brew or within that medicine that's got the spirit guides behind you, right? And I trust that they always have my best interest in mind, provided you respect the space and you show up, as a good student or participant or a humble. So there's other elements to this particular plant that I feel is of the highest experience you can have.
So go ahead.
Talk about what what a ceremony looks like. What can someone expect when they arrive, taking the medicine? What happens immediately after, and what's going on with the group?
Sure. So
Respond quicker than Charles Schultz over here, right? Yeah. Peanuts comic.
So basically, you would. So let's say you came prepared. You did your diet and you follow all the rules of. And by the way, it should be said that this cannot be done. Anybody on SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, a lot of these antidepressants, you cannot do it on that. That could be actually dangerous.
Yeah,
and,
wow.
And a lot of deaths occur either from mixing that without not being honest and mixing those two substances. Or
Great
some
disclaimer.
People,
save the show.
Yeah, basically. And some people, if they do it on their own, they choke on their own vomit. So it's safe.
So you get there. It's a 3-day thing. You've prepped ahead of time for a couple of days.
Yeah, and it's very important to be honest with whatever circle you're doing it with, that you're not on these things, because some people are like, oh, I don't want to we've had people in certain circles that did show up and didn't either read it or know or whatever, and then they can't participate and they've dieted their whole time.
Oh wow! And you're showing up with people you know and trust, or strangers?
There's two ways of doing it. I mean, I like when I first did it. In the jungle, I went with two friends.
See, he didn't go to West Hollywood. He went to the jungle.
Yeah, which has
He's done it over 200
advantages.
times. It's been many jungles and many West Hollywood.
I would say the two most powerful experiences. One was in the jungle with 7 shamans on a full moon deep in the middle of nowhere, and the other one was on a Tuesday night in my spare bedroom in Hollywood. So
and you can get this
side,
elixir at Erewhon.
Exactly, Erewhon or Trader Joe's. No, it's definitely something you can't quite get. And if you are buying it online, I wouldn't recommend it. Like you gotta. Can
you buy it online?
No, I mean you can buy the plants or powdered version of the plant. All the shit.
We're going to a shaman.
No,
so you get there.
Do it properly. So you show up. Usually everyone's wearing white to kind of respect the space and kind of be cleanse the energies and all that stuff. You get saged. Everyone sits down. We share intentions. This is the quick version. Yeah,
I know, but it's generally done as a small community of sorts. We're in this together.
Correct.
We share intentions.
You share intentions. You can. You don't have to, but you can. It's recommended to kind of put your intention out into the room, but not necessary.
Yeah.
And then you drink. So usually the first cup everyone drinks together.
It's a tea.
It's a tea.
Is it hot?
It's not. No.
It's cold.
It's cold.
A little honey?
No.
And
no sugars.
Most people are drinking 1 cup as their dose?
Anywhere from 1 to 3. So the different circles do different things. You can either drink all together all the time, or you drink the first one together and then as needed, you say, hey, I need a little more or whatever, and then you can just, ask. And then at some point there's a last call, or you're closing out the space because everyone has to kind of come back at some point together, and then then you share after in the sharing circle.
But back to the tea.
Wait, hold on. Some weed people, I would be like, when I would smoke, I'm like, this is creeper weed. Like I would smoke and not feel anything, and then I'm like, I need to smoke more, and then all of a sudden I was super duper high.
Yeah.
So can that happen?
Does it creep up on you like an edible?
Sometimes like the second cup. The first cup kicks in just as you took the second cup.
Yeah.
And that, that can get a little dicey.
Is it normally about 45 minutes to an hour?
It depends.
So?
Anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on people's MAO.
So you put your intentions out, you drink the tea. A shaman is doing circles, probably a guy with long hair, no shirt and white pants. And he's kind of assisting, making you feel good, kind of like
correct. And just checking in
yogi
on people.
Pushes it too far.
And correct. And if you ask for more, they might say like, hey, sit with that for a little while. This one. And that's why like we test the medicine. Like we cook in Hawaii with the shamans out there, and we test it. So usually when you're serving the medicine, it's medicine that's been tested or adjusted or tweaked, so we know what we're working with, kind of thing, right? So it might be like one of these things where, hey, this one's takes a little bit longer. Maybe there's a little more ayahuasca, a little less chacruna, or there's different variations of chacruna.
I love it. It's not reckless, and everyone feels like it's reckless.
That's the thing.
It's a reckless act.
But there are people that do
When
it
it's measured.
recklessly. But that's the problem. Is
Really?
like with anything, there are people that do it recklessly, right?
I just mean any drug usage, people assign a recklessness to
Absolutely.
it. Whereas in this case, what you're describing is incredibly measured and thoughtful.
yeah.
So
and
you're in this circle, you drink the tea. What's the point you start to watch people where it's not affecting you yet, and you start to watch
Ben
numbnuts over
Belak
here
going
start
off,
to
super realtor.
want to lick the
Well,
LCD light bulbs.
it's funny because that always tends to be. I like to be the first one to purge because I feel
Yeah, I was
like
going to say there's no time for that. There's a purging.
there's usually
the
people
purging.
purging, right? So
Yeah.
I
Both
like
ends.
to be. Either one.
Nice facilities or no?
Depends. When I did it in the jungle, we're shitting in buckets. Like there's no running water. Man,
I'm gonna do
raw.
it in West Hollywood now.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. You want to do it in a nice house in Bel Air. But so I like that because at least it tends to get, because everyone's a bit you feel it coming on and you're people might be a little shut. Like at least like I kind of like let's give permission or the first one usually gets
break
it going.
the seal.
Break the seal. Then you start to see everyone else purge, or some people don't. It depends on the Hawaiian medicine, a little less on the Peruvian stuff. Tends to be a bit more intense, but so it depends on the person, depends on the medicine. But give or take, then you purge and you tend to have the experience. And sometimes for some people that's enough. They just they got what they needed on one cup. Great, or if you might need 2 or 3 cups, cool. So there's no real one way to do it. As long as it's in an intentional environment that's respected and that's done properly with good medicine, that's safe, that's been tested.
I have a crazy story. I know this girl who was like looking for something, and apparently she had some sort of operation when she was younger where it resulted in she was unable to vomit. So for the first night of this thing, she was in misery, just dry heaving for hours and hours
Jesus.
and hours and hours. And the thing is there were people in her group that left early. It was like a 2 or 3 day thing.
Yeah.
They left early. They were like, I got what I need. I'm out of here, right? Fine.
Yeah.
But she, like a true hero, she said,
kept going.
I didn't come for this. I'm doing this again. And I was so blown away that she said that because dry heaving is like the worst thing ever. And she said the second night she had no like compulsion to purge at all.
Wow.
She had she was just kind of like in a really
Blissful
like
state.
blissful cosmic
But
state.
see that I love that because for me, someone who's
It's a cool
doing
story though.
No,
I would
it was
never.
riveting.
But that's the thing. Like when people say, like, "Oh, you should do it, man. It's great." No, people should only do it if and when they feel called, right? And if you don't. But because of moments like this, right? If somebody pushed you into doing it and you had that first night, like she had, you'd be like, "Fucking Ben, I can't believe it." You would go ballistics, or you would just be. It would be horrible. But when you're going for the right reason because you really feel like you're going for something, that gives you the power. Circling it back to real estate, because I know we were trying to tie it into real estate, which we can circle back at the end. But it's what's your big why, right? Like so, like why are you doing this? Is it because it's cool and trendy, or is it because you want to check it off your bucket list, like going to Burning Man or whatever, or is it because you're really diving in for something that you desperately need to find out? And when your why is big enough, no hell that you go through in ceremony will be enough to deter you from getting there.
I never even heard about like a why being part of doing a ceremony like that.
Yeah.
So
That would seem like the number one reason to me. If I'm going to do a journey, I get it, the bucket list, I get it's trendy, but like I would want to feel like I have felt this urge to do it. I don't feel like I've been called yet, but I would kind of like to go deeper into my
even
psyche.
texted.
Yeah.
Even texted, not called.
I got a text.
Yeah.
I'd like to go deeper and see what comes of it. Not that I'm looking for something specific, but I want to see if something can come
in
to me.
And
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
And has
for
that
sure.
happened?
Big time. So like for me, if you don't have an intention, sometimes people, like for me, obviously I've done it enough times where, and you wouldn't normally do it as much as I have necessarily. I'm in the space and I'm cooking and I'm testing and I'm, so doing it a bit more than one would normally.
Next on Breaking Bad. The real estate years. We haven't
estate
done
era.
that. It's going to be brilliant.
At a showing. So you for people that don't quite, that are a bit more, that are feeling called to, let's say, and you just don't know what angle to take because life's pretty good, but you're curious about something more, then I would, the intention I always recommend is like, take me where I need to be, show me what I need to see, right? And that can be a dangerous intention too, because sometimes like, woof, the shit comes out of nowhere. But that's almost that's kind of like an open-ended of like, hey, I trust you. I'm not quite sure where my blind spots are, because you wouldn't be doing this in the first place, right? It's like changing a light bulb. You're sitting there trying to change a light bulb. You're trying 10,000 different light bulbs, and you're like, how come it's not working? And then you do the medicine, and it starts to take you there. And the intent, your intention, I will say, have the intention, but let go of the way in which it shows up, because she might be taking the mother plant spirit.
That.
She might be taking you here, and you're like, no, but what about the light bulb? Oh, fuck. And then it's like the switch is off, or the fuse is blown. Oh shit, right? If you knew what the solution was, you wouldn't be there in the first place. So have the intention.
We should live
humble
life
yourself.
like
and,
that's what I was thinking.
And receive,
not being attached to
don't
an
be attached
outcome.
to how it happens. And going back to like you were saying in the room where some people are popping off before. There's a challenge there, because sometimes like my first 3, I didn't go anywhere, and I'm sitting there and people are like, having these experiences, and I'm like, performance anxiety now. It's like, how come, what about me? And then the next day people sharing their life-changing moments, and like, and this Italian guy, lascia andare, you gotta let go. I'm like, I don't fucking know how to let go. That's why I'm here.
That's me.
And you're right. So it's like, I'm holding on. I was so desperate. And then the next day, and finally the 4th one, we were there for 7. We did 7 in 9 days. And so the 4th one, I'm like, you know what? Fuck this shit. It's not for me. Like, I'm sorry, I don't know if I can swear here, but screw this.
Yeah.
It's not for me. I already paid. I'm here. I'll drink anyway, because whatever, right? And I guess that was the letting go I needed, because on just 1 cup, it was the most powerful experience of my life. And then, of course, subsequently, everything popped in and showed me why I went through that, and what to do with it and all that stuff. So, again, it's down to the big why and your commitment to it.
And getting out of your own way. If I take something from this, that is so huge.
Yeah.
Letting go and not being so tied to the outcome. It took me, a very separate story, but it took us 5 years to have our first child, and we did everything possible. And at one point, we were like, maybe we're not supposed to do this together on this journey, and we let go, and we literally let go, because we thought, I don't know if this is right.
Yeah.
And we got pregnant without doing anything.
The power of the mind, right, or the spirits, or however you want to call it. Like, think about it, because it's the same fluids and the same bodies. Why does it work one time and not the other? So, yeah, that's a big proponent in all this.
Goes to your golf game too. I tell you all the time. There's so much work you put
Try
in. There's so
microdosing
much
on the
tension
golf
when you're
course,
over
you'll
the
see.
tee. At some point, you let go, and you let go of the result, and you start hitting drives 300 like you are now.
Well, it's like I forget who that baseball player is famously
Joe DiMaggio.
Pitched a no-hitter on acid.
No way.
But
Sandy
that was a
Koufax.
famous.
Start that rumor.
No. Wait.
Dwight Gooden pitched on blow. Well, I'll tell you that.
As we wrap up here, can I just ask you one personal question?
Sure.
Why hundreds of ceremonies? What are you looking for?
Well, that's the thing, right? So for me, like I said earlier, it's not something that most of the ceremonies I've done are not necessarily for me. They're in service in the space, and so and testing medicine and cooking and all that stuff.
So for you, it's contribution.
For me, it's contribution. For me, it's giving back. There's a sense of duty, however you want to state it.
Boy, is there.
That basically on the right ones. There's a sense of duty and giving back and helping people, through their experience, because it brought me so much.
So what would you say that's touching, by the way. Ben's starting to tear up. That is nice. What would you say?
He has a cold heart that not even the sun could melt, but it is cool. And
We'll get there.
I appreciate it.
Couple journeys in, he'll melt like a...
No, I was just going to ask you what the biggest takeaway you've gotten from it as a person, in your career, in your relationships, just in your life. Are there things that you've taken that have enhanced your life tremendously in all aspects?
Yeah, a big one is like... None of this really matters, right? It's called a dream, right? Life's about a dream kind of thing, right? And so if life's not that big a deal in a way, because you start to see all the other dimensions or aspects or timelines or universes or parallel universes or whatever, you see the bigger picture, the 30,000 foot bird's eye view.
It's a zoom out.
It's a zoom out. You
Bird's
realize
eye
like this
view.
is just like one dream in a higher consciousness state, right? We're all sitting here in some other dimension playing this video game for 70 years together or whatever. And so what's holding you back from actually going after the things you want, having the conversations you need to have, taking the shots that you're afraid to take?
We're so worried about these little things that
we're
I
zoomed
often
into.
find that drugs and alcohol take away from people. They're inhibitions. If we could act like that without having to go crazy, Not that that's going crazy, but
No.
if we could, on a daily basis, if you could take from those journeys the ability to look at life from a bird's eye view, you'd probably have zero inhibitions at some point.
Well, and that's the thing. Like a lot of people think the idea is to, get to the spiritual realms and be completely enlightened. Not necessarily. It's about going there, figuring out, learning from that, and then bringing that divinity down and living that in everyday life, right? So it's bringing that philosophy or that love or that unconditional flow between humans, that being a good all that stuff, bringing that and living that way here, not necessarily escaping it and becoming a divine being, prematurely. We're all going to get there eventually, whatever you believe. If not, then nobody will be around to
work hard, live life, and let go.
Yeah. Basically.
Don't be tied to the outcome.
Calm down, everyone.
I'm getting juiced, man. We go afterwards.
Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up here?
Yeah, I think the idea was to try and, I know we got long-winded and kind of more deep dive into the medicine talk, but to kind of bringing it back to like the relevance of all this stuff into real estate and how that can help, kind of like we were saying some of the insights. But I think ideally anything, right? Whether it's microdosing mushrooms, acid, all these things, it's just understanding yourself better and knowing how to relate to others better, right? Just again, going back to some of your coaching things you were talking about that in one of your podcasts about rewiring your brain around, money. I think you guys were talking about that money episode on how to reshift our conditioning as children, whether it's around money, whether it's around how we interact with people, whether it's our belief systems. It should all be for me personally, it's all in pursuit of how do I elevate, how do I become a better version of myself from one day to the next? How do I shed the traumas? How do I wipe off the filters of my preconceived notions of you, and how do I interact with that, right? And so it's got to be. That's why I've never done coke. That's why I've never to each our own. But I've never heard a compelling argument as to how that would help me become a better version of myself, or it gives you energy, which I'm fine with. So I'm more interested in things that kind of propel me forward, that kind of open my heart. That's why MDMA has its place, right? Mm-hmm. Done right and the right dosing of just allowing yourself to connect with others and have those conversations and things like that. So for me, it's like, understand what the goal is, what the intention is, find and explore it with the medicines that'll get you there, and then you plateau. Then you work on that until you plateau, and then you might not need it for a while. And then when you hit a certain level, go to the next level. So for you guys, it might be scaling your business from here to there. Whereas for the new agents, it might be getting over the fears of cold calling or believing in themselves to kind of go after the big deals. So, I think it's to each their own. But I'm a big advocate in learning it responsibly, using it as a tool, and just respecting the process.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. You truly are my hero dose.
I get it now, what you've been talking about. I'm involved now too. It's like elevating your own game, and we've got your guide. So if you do want to elevate your own game, don't do it without a guide. Where can they find you if they need you?
They'll find me in the jungle. They'll find me deep in the jungle.
What's your Instagram?
Stefan Pompuy.
And guys, for those of you antiquated drug dealers living in the past, Stefan is selling his new 10-part series on how to sell the medicine and how it can improve your life. I say take it, guys. I think it's really great. I'm at Ben Bellac. Hope you enjoyed this vibe-packed episode of To Live and Buy in Los Angeles, sitting next to friend, co-host, arch nemesis,
Zach Goldsmith, 2-4. This has been a super enlightening episode. Super bien.